we will start our lecture now for chapter 10 in your textbook about tooth identification. You know, we will talk generally now, having you taken all the lectures, all the permanent dentition, and even all the modules of the each tooth by tooth and the primary dentition also. You will need to have, in the end of this course, a knowledge about what tooth is this when you have a look at a 3D feature of the tooth. So this is done either by looking at your patients or taking a extracted teeth by your hand, or whether you take the quizzes on the applications of 3D teeth anatomy. We will start now very rapidly in this lecture to tell you about some of the main differences in tooth identification. So here we go. Now we have general rules generally for the tooth in each row. Let's say they are 5 general rules. Firstly, about the curvature of the cement enamel junction, that's supposed to be less on the distal side than on the mesial side, and this is for an aesthetic concern. Okay, mostly 1 millimeter. Number 2, the apex of the root curves distally. If there's a curvature, it will be curved distally. Number 3, we have that the distal incisal edges are always more rounded than the mesial incisal edges. This is in the anterior teeth. Now we'll move also to, if you have natural teeth, you will see mandibular what we call attrition or wear trait of the tooth, which is different maxillary than mandibular, and we'll talk about this in the physiology following this. Never mind about the point number 4. Number 5, and later we'll talk about the molars. The molars, the more posteriorly we go in the arch, meaning from a first to second to third molar, we go, number 1, smaller in size, shorter cusps, fewer cusps, and also more secondary and tertiary anatomy. Okay, more variation of the anatomy is evident. Also, about the roots, they are mostly fused roots and shorter in length. Mostly, this is what I need you to know generally, and you will understand this in the physiology. Starting for incisors, let's go fastly. You have identification features for each of teeth. You have identification features, for example, incisors, maxillary central incisor identification features, maxillary lateral incisor identification features, mandibular central incisor and mandibular lateral incisor, each of which have their own identification features. At first, the incisors, usually you know the incisal edges. You know that we have crown mesiodistally the widest, and also we have what we call a triangular fossa and a triangular cingulum in the lingual side. We would want to say that we have always mesially a sharp edge about 90 degrees, while distally it's always round. The contact areas are always found in the incisal third. We have a fossa and a cingulum that has in the central incisor that is very prominent, and it goes more rounded in the lateral incisor. The lateral incisor has less length, or when we say, we always don't say about only mesiodistal width, we always talk about relative dimensions, you have learned. So when we say it would be relatively, the crown to root ratio is less in the lateral compared to the central incisor. A central incisor has nothing to be missed. You will not be lost in a central incisor. Okay, it is very obvious. We have said. Want to know what is the right from left, we will want to see the mesioincisal angle that is sharp. And we will want to see the cervical line, the cemento-enamel junction that is more displaced, more longer mesially than distally, let's say. Now, each and every tooth for the maxillary lateral, you can see the mesiocervical line in the cemento-enamel junction. This is the only thing to know, right or left. Okay, now the mandibular, you'll need to know that the incisors are smaller in size. They are ovally, the roots are more oval in cross-section compared to incisor, to maxillary. And we will have, this is what we call the Weir angle. You will see it in natural teeth. Now the central incisor has the incisal aspect that is perpendicular to the mesiodistal, to the buccolingual axis of the tooth. So you will see it as looking like this, the mesial, and the distal lobes are identical. This is a central, which is different from a lateral. Here you will know that a lateral incisor tips more, the distal lobe appears larger than the mesial lobe. So in that case, we will know a lateral incisor from the tipping lingually of the distal incisal edge. Okay, this is very important. How do you know right from left? You will, this is here from the cemento-enamel junction, from the distal aspect here that you should be going lingual side, and also from, here you go, going distal side, and also not same as for central incisor, where you have also tipping of the roots distally in distal curvature. You can know also from the root where it goes distally, this is right or left. Canines going from incisors to canines, they will have a lingual fossa and a lingual cusp ridge. This is different. Here is the lingual cusp ridge. You will have a very well-developed marginal ridges and a very well-developed cingulum. Okay, as we go to the canine, this is the longest tooth in root. This is also has the what we call distal convexity. Okay, mesial concavity and a distal concavity, where we have from the a distal concavity here in the canine with the proximal premolar tooth, first premolar. We know also that the root tips distally. The cusp tip of the canine, it is over directly in the center over the root. How do you know right from left? The cervical line angle and the where you see the distofacially, here it is more elongated. It means the tip moves more mesially. Okay. As you go, this is right to left. The distal surface more rounded, and we see contact area more cervically located. Okay, this is the more cervically located in the more incisally or incisal located in the mesial, and more cervical located in the distal side. Mandibular canines, they tend to have less mesiodistal width compared to maxillary, and we will have poor or less developed cingulum, less developed ridges, less developed lingual ridge. Okay. Now going to premolars. Premolars, the bicuspids, we call them. They have the root characteristics also. For example, the maxillary premolar, here we will have the almost an proximal view. We don't have, we have almost nearly sized cusps, the buccal and the lingual cusps, nearly. We say nearly same height because we have more difference in the first premolar compared to the maxillary second premolar. Why we say this? Because it's different than the mandibular premolars, where we say it is uneven at all. The cusps, we have functional, non-functional, where here mostly it is equal size. In the maxillary first premolar, mostly we have two roots. We have a longer, slightly longer buccal cusp. Also, we have what we call the mesial marginal groove on the root, the mesial marginal developmental groove on the crown, okay, mesial crown depression. And also we can say about the cervical line, which curves mesially more than distally. Occlusally, you will have cusp ridges that are mesially 90 degrees, while distally it is more rounded line angle. Second premolar, we have usually nearly same height. We don't have a lot of difference, like in the first maxillary first premolar. Single root mostly. We have a shorter central groove. We don't have any depression in the mesial developmental depression or mesial developmental groove. Where we know the right from left through the lingual cusp that is displaced mostly to the mesial side compared to the midline of the root. We can also know from the tipping distally of the root. Okay. The mandibular premolars, we have two lingual and buccal, and we have the lingual cusps are much smaller in size. We have these are called non-functional cusps. And we have the mesiodistal plus buccolingual dimensions are mostly the same. We have a square shape, square to round shape. So the mandibular first premolar, here is it. We will have tilted, it is tilted towards the lingual side. We have cervical line, mesially more than distally as always. And we have for occlusal oval outline, we have a transverse ridge in the middle, while we don't have a central pit. We have much smaller lingual cusp. How do you know right from left? Always the distal marginal ridge is more prominent compared to the mesial marginal ridge. We have it more longer in length, and we say that the mesial marginal ridge, it has a lingual tendency. Okay, the mesial marginal ridge, it has some groove or mesial marginal groove. For the second, this is the first. The second premolar, you know that it is more pentagonal in shape. We don't have a transverse ridge. We mostly have a central pit, and sometimes where you see the 2 cusp type or 3 cusp type in this premolar. Now, what you see is from proximally, you have little tilting lingually, okay, while we have lingually 2 cusps, 1 root, of course. The occlusal surface is more visible from distally than from mesially, because the distal marginal ridge is shorter or shows more of the occlusal compared to the mesial marginal ridge. Now, as we go more posteriorly to the molars, we will have these general rules that we have talked about, more smaller in size, more distal inclination, more fewer cusps, okay? But starting for the molars, we have 3 to 5 cusps, 5 cusps in the first premolar and 3 in the third molar, okay? We will have more buccolingual dimension, more than mesiodistal dimension, and we mostly have 3 roots on the maxillary molars. The maxillary molar, here we have occlusal view. You see that we have the characteristic of the oblique ridge, okay, more than the this that looks like the lower 5 or the upper 5. Okay, plus adding to it an oblique ridge plus a second continuation or projection, which is called the talon. This is the talon of the tooth. Maxillary first molar, we have Carabelli cusp on the mesiolingual side, and it is a characteristic of the first molar, and it helps you with right or left. Now the second molar, mostly you will see a smaller oblique ridge, and you'll know about the mesiolingual cusp, which is larger, the largest cusp. Okay, here you can know right from left. Mostly it doesn't have a Carabelli. Sometimes it does have the supplemental fifth cusp. Roots are closer, they turn to be more fused, more closer, and we don't have a fifth cusp. We have a much larger mesiolingual than distolingual cusp. Third molar, very fused roots. The distolingual cusps seem to be missing. You have here only 3 cusps, okay? And you will see right from left according to the roots, which curve distally, and according to the much smaller here distobuccal cusp. The distobuccal is much smaller than the mesiobuccal cusp. Where we have also the maxillary molars, the heart-shaped appearance, and you will see more, as we said, more tertiary anatomy, more wrinkles or supplementary grooves in the third molars. Going finally and lastly to the mandibular molars, always we have more mesiodistally. Compared to maxillary molars, we have more mesiodistal dimension than faciolingual dimension. We also have 2 roots. We will have the same 5 cusps to 3 cusps, but it's different because it is more distributed mesiodistally. Now the first molar, okay, 3 cusps in the lingual side. We have 2 facial grooves. Roots are widely separated. We have the smallest distobuccal cusp. We have in the second molar 2 cusps, 2 buccal cusps rather than 3 buccal cusps in the first molar. Here we have 2 buccal cusps. So we have 4 cusps in general. You will see the occlusal straight from the mesial to the distal, the occlusal central groove. Okay, and also from buccal to lingual, you will have this cross sign. How do you know right to left? We have the height of contours. You know that the buccal height of contour is in the cervical third, while the lingual height of contour is in the mostly upper to middle third. This is number 1. Number 2, you will have it seen from the mesial marginal ridge and distal marginal ridge. The mesial marginal ridge is higher, okay, and it shows less from the occlusal surface, as we have always said. Now going to third molar, more wrinkled appearance, more shorter, also 4 cusps, but more shorter roots, more fused roots. How do you know right from left? The tapering, we have said, of the crown distally and of the roots distally. So we say that the mesial marginal ridge is much higher than the distal marginal ridge. This is finally what we have to say about the teeth identification. You have multiple videos in the interactive book that will help you to differentiate the teeth. And good luck in your exam. I will stop the lecture here.